Well, good morning and welcome to Tuesdays with the Pilgrim as we continue reading Flying Against Time with Chapter 17. "Quick, Jackson, throw some water on that wing before it catches fire," commanded Ted Scott. Jackson obeyed promptly, and the flame sputtered and went out. Ted pulled the stick and the plane shot upward. In the aftermath of the light left by the burning trails, he could just make out the black bulk of the plane he had seen a little while before. It was making off now after its abortive attempt, but Ted put on full speed and was soon abreast of it, separated by a distance of perhaps 100 feet. "Take the stick, Jackson," Ted directed. Jackson slipped into the seat that Ted vacated and assumed charge of the controls. "What are you going to do, Ted?" asked Walter Hapworth as he saw his friend reaching for something on the floor of the fuselage. "I'll show you in a minute," replied Ted, as he picked up a sawed-off shotgun. "Keep her steady, Jackson." He raised the gun to his shoulder and fired. There was a yell of fright from the occupants of the other plane. "Did you hit them?" exclaimed Hapworth. "No," replied Ted. I wasn't trying to. What I wanted to do was throw a scare into them and at the same time pepper the plane with shot so that it could be identified later. I guess I've done both. But just to make sure, I'll give 'em another dose." He let go the contents of the second barrel, and this too was greeted with affrighted yells. "I guess that'll hold 'em for a while," remarked Ted as he laid down the weapon. "It's just as well that I had the idea of bringing this thing along. When we get to Boston, I'll report the matter to the police and set them to looking for a plane that's marked with shot holes. From that, they won't have to go far to find the pilot. Give me the stick now, Jackson." "I hope them birds caught some of that shot," said Jackson vengefully, as he surrendered the controls. "Well, maybe they did," returned Ted, "though I tried to aim low, but that small shot scatters a lot." The darkness had now swallowed up the other plane, and there was no object in pursuing it further. "Some more of the Gale villainy, I shouldn't wonder," surmised Jackson. "I don't think so," dissented Ted. "They probably put all their hopes on the bomb. This job may have been put up by my good friend Dago Dan, or by some others of the same stripe. The time is short now, and they're probably growing desperate." "I'll feel mighty relieved when you're once started on your flight and out of reach of these scoundrels," sighed Mr. Hapworth. "Oh, even then I won't be out of their reach," replied Ted. "You've seen from what has just happened that there's danger from them in the air as well as on the ground. Still, it will be harder, for they won't know just where to find me." It was about 11 o'clock that night when the lights of Boston came into view. Ted had visited the city before, so he knew accurately the location of the airport. Even if he had been a stranger, he would have found little difficulty in reaching it because of the brilliancy of the beacons and searchlights that swept across the sky. He was cordially welcomed by the commander of the airport, who was on the lookout for his distinguished visitor. "We feel honored that Boston has been chosen for the start of the great ocean-to-ocean race," he said. "Everybody's talking about it, and you'll have a tremendous crowd out to see you off. I've got a little bit of coin wagered on you myself." "Well, that's a compliment," laughed Ted. "I hope you won't drop your money." "I haven't any fear of that," was the reply. "I suppose your trip from Bromville has been without special incident?" "Only that someone tried to set my plane on fire," replied Ted. "What?" exclaimed the commander. "You're joking." "Oh, this is no joke," declared Ted, and went on to narrate the attack of that evening. The official, Charborn by name, was profoundly shocked. "I wouldn't have believed it possible," he exclaimed. "I'll get in touch with the authorities and start them looking for a plane that's peppered with small shot. If they catch the scoundrel who piloted it, he'll be arrested and made to tell who hired him." "I'll appreciate your looking after that matter," replied Ted, "for I'll be so busy with preparations that I can't attend to it myself. But if you once get them jailed, I'll appear at the trial after my return from the coast." Ted Scott saw to the bestowal of his plane in the hangar that had been made ready for it, and which Charborn promised would be kept under the strictest guard both day and night. Then the weary trio went to the hotel, where rooms had been engaged in advance. 5 days still remained before the ultimate date chosen for the race against time. But Ted did not figure on waiting till the very last day, if it were possible to avoid it. That day might prove a wretched one because of weather conditions. He wanted to have a certain margin of choice. 5 days ought to afford it. But the first day after his arrival was by no means propitious, as the weather reports told of gales raging in the Midwest. So Ted spent most of the day on the field at the airport, putting the finishing touches on his plane and attending, with Jackson's help, to the storing of fuel and supplies. The latter still had some work to do when Ted went out from the field to the street. It was growing dark, and a dreary drizzle bathed the town in fog. "Taxi, sir?" called a driver, drawing his machine to the curb. "Yes," Ted said, giving the name of his hotel. He stepped inside to feel himself caught in the grip of 3 brawny pairs of arms. He struggled violently, but a wet cloth was pressed over his nostrils, shutting off his breath. A heavy, pungent odor assailed him, and he felt himself going down fathoms deep into unconsciousness. When Ted Scott awoke, it was a long time before he realized what had happened to him. His head was reeling from the effects of the chloroform, the sickly, sweetish odor of which seemed to permeate the place where he found himself. He cudgelled his weary brain and tried to remember. Slowly, very slowly, recollection came back to him. Not in a steady stream, but with abrupt gaps here and there that made him crease his brow anxiously as he sought to fill them in. He had been on the airfield with Jackson, sorting the plane. Then he had gone outside on the street. It was raining, he remembered. He hailed a taxi. No, that wasn't it. A taxi man had hailed him. He recalled the satisfaction he felt at not having to stand long in the rain. The taxi. Taxi? Why did his memory stop short there? Something had happened connected with the taxi. Had he stepped in? Had it gone on without him? No, he had stepped in. Then with a rush the rest came back to him, the powerful arms, so many in number that they seemed to belong to an octopus, the strangling hold on his throat, the wet, queer-smelling cloth pressed down upon his nostrils, his desperate struggles, and then blackness and silence. Where was he now? Certainly not in the taxi, for he was not sitting, but lying full length, lying on something hard, quite unlike the beds to which he was accustomed. He tried to feel what was beneath him, but his hand was jerked back abruptly. Then he realized that his hands were bound, not tightly together, but with a slack of about 6 inches between them. He moved his legs and found that they were similarly shackled. A wave of rage rushed over him. He was a prisoner. His enemies at last had triumphed. But where was he being held? The room was shrouded in blackness and gave him no indication as to his whereabouts. But as his head grew clearer, he became conscious of a gentle rocking motion. At first he attributed the sensation to his dizziness, but that explanation vanished when he heard the splashing of water against planks and the steady chug-chug of an engine. He was on a boat, shanghaied, kidnapped, and the last day possible for his flight, only 4 days away. Where was the vessel bound? It was a comparatively small one, as he could tell by the sound of the engines, probably not an ocean-going craft, yet it was plenty big enough to take him down the coast, to Florida or Cuba, perhaps. After all, its destination did not really matter. It might have no port in view. All it needed to do was idle around somewhere out of reach until those 4 faithful days had passed. Dismay gripped the young aviator as he realized all that this kidnapping meant. There was the loss of his own $10,000, but that was a small matter. He did not give it a second thought. But there was the $30,000 wagered by Walter Hapworth and Paul Monet, and the innumerable numbers of other wagers made all over the country. As he lay there, eating his heart out with anger, he became conscious that it was lighter in the room than when he awoke. He turned on his side and saw a dim glimmer coming through a porthole in the side of his room. Morning? And it had been barely dusk when he had been bundled into the cab. He must have been sunk in that drugged slumber for 12 hours or thereabouts, and in that 12 hours the vessel had plenty of time to get far out of sight of land. It had been doubtlessly lying ready with steam up, waiting the outcome of the nefarious attempt. He knew that by this time Walter Hapworth had enlisted the efforts of the police, and that Boston and its environs were being gone over with a fine-tooth comb. But even if they should think of the water, what possible clue were they likely to have? He got awkwardly out of the rude bunk in which he was lying, and made his halting way to the porthole. He measured it with his eye to see if it would permit the passage of his body. Impossible, not half big enough. But if he could not go through the aperture, he could see through it, and what he saw filled him with dismay. No land anywhere, water everywhere. A key grated in the lock of his door. And that's the end of chapter 17. This is getting exciting. Next week, we'll continue with chapter 18, Taking a Chance. Until then, take care, stay safe, and God bless.